In this next part, I'm going to take a look at some buttons and some knobs, and let's kind of see the difference between the two. So what are some easy ways to bring in some buttons in here? So from our illustration, remember I had two circles here, and I still have them here in my sketch. So let's say this bottom one is a button and this top one is a knob. Let's see, probably the easiest way to create this may be to let's say I just want to do a separation of this same surface. The surface is curved, and let's say I want this button that maybe the on button, and it's going to follow that same, that same surface contour. It's going to follow the same contour, but there has to be a little bit of a tolerance to that. So I'm going to use that sketch. I'll show that sketch here. So I'm going to use just that one element of it. So I'm going to use the cut extrude because I want to cut a hole through this, but at the same time, what I want to do is actually make the button. So what I'm going to use is the thin feature. So remember, with our contours, we can choose just one element of our sketch. So even though this sketch has, with like 4 different elements, the outside of the racetrack, the inside of the racetrack, the knob, and then the button, all of those entities, enclosed entities. I'm going to use just this one. So be sure that you have selected contours on here. So if I delete this, the entire sketch basically becomes a cutting tool. But I just need this one piece here. So remember, blue expects a selection where it's blue here. So I'm going to select that contour. And so just this piece of the sketch is going to be used. And remember that I wanted to use the thin feature to create both the button and the cut at the same time. So the wall thickness of that tolerance. Okay, so this is where I can set that. So I'm going to use thin feature. And what that does is it creates a wall for that cut. Okay, so there's the wall. And let's say this dimension for this circle is the actual button dimension. I don't want to go smaller than that. So the tolerance of the space between the button and this surface is going to be whatever I place here. So 0.1 is pretty big. So I'm going to go let's see, 0.04. Let's try that. So 0.04, pretty tight tolerance there. And so what it's going to do is it's going to cut a 0.04 wall thickness hole between these two. And it's going to ask me to keep one or all of the bodies, because what's going to happen is it's going to separate this middle area button from the original, the original solid piece here. So when I click OK, this window comes up. And this is what it's asking you, okay, what do you want to keep? In this case, I want to keep all of the bodies that are produced from this action. So I click OK. I'm going to hide that sketch. And then we can see our, the button on the inside of that. And it becomes its own body. And so I'll call this the on button. Okay, so then from here, we can do other things. We can, of course, fillet this edge just to create a highlight when we bring it into KeyShot, or whatever other rendering program you'd like. 0.01, so small. And the fillet only works on one body at a time, so we'll have to do another one here on the inside button. So there we go. So there it is, fully flush in that area. But let's say you don't want it fully flush. Let's say you want this slightly raised. Maybe you want a little bit of a tactile feel. Maybe you want it to be the same, maybe the same height as this piece here. So we can use our move copy bodies. So this body I'm not going to copy it, but let's say I'm going to go, and I believe that height is 0.1, right? So 0.1. There we go. So we just move that up 0.1. All right. And we can model in another, let's say, I'm going to use the move face. I'm interested in why it's taking, looks pretty straightforward. I'm not sure why it's taking a little while for the, okay, translate, that's fine. I'm just going to give that button a little bit more dimension. There we go. And let's say you wanted a little bit of a wall here that goes, we can also use our, direct editing tools for that. You just need to split, wherever you want that wall to start. So by that, I mean, I'm going to look at the bottom here. So let's say this button, this is the full height of the button, and it's never going to go above this, but it will go down somewhat, whatever that depression click you specify. And remember, you specify all this stuff. So let's say you want a very accurate feel to this. So it's this very small dimension that it actually moves up and down. Just a small click, kind of like let's say like an Audi interior or something. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate that. And I think I already have that sketch here. Actually, I don't here. So I'm going to go top view, start a new sketch. And I'm going to offset the original radius that I have for the top of this. I'm going to offset that. Let's see if I can here. Do a convert entities for construction. Now I can offset, reverse, and 0.31. Okay, so this sketch is going to split the face of this cylinder. Okay, so this cylinder is continuous all the way up and down, but I just want a certain element of it to go up in size or increase. So I'll try to do that. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to use my split line. So split line can use a sketch entity to split a face. So it's a projected. So this line gets projected onto this face and it's going to split it. And there we go. So now we have this split here. So this is the wall that I want to go outward. So this is where I'm going to use the move face and try the offset tool. So I'm going to get out of there, make sure that I save it. So move face, offset. Okay, I just want to see if it does it. Oh no, okay. A bit of a crash there. Okay, so I'm going to try something else. What I'm going to do is, remember we have our surface tool, so I'm going to offset this face. That might be a better way to do it. So I'm going to do offset, and let's say 0.1 is fine. And then I'll thicken that offset. So I'll thicken this to the inside. I do want it to merge. There we go. So it merges back up with, actually I'm going to make sure that it merges just with the button and not this piece here. So I'm going to say auto, actually take off auto select and select what I want to merge it with. Under feature scope, remember that you decide what you want to merge with, whatever element you want. There we go. Okay. So it does cause this little lip here, but we can get rid of that later. I want to go completely flat with this all the way across. You know, I'm going to just probably, actually we'll just take care of it now. I'm going to delete these faces. So delete that, unnecessary. All of that stuff. Delete, actually I'm going to do a delete and fill. Actually delete and patch. Let's see. I'm going to have to delete these one at a time here. So delete that. Delete that one. I'll try to do a delete and patch now. Delete those. Straight delete there. So I'm left with this, and that'll be the final delete face. And let's see what happens here with a delete and fill. Okay, so that was just a straight delete, no fill or no patching. So I'm going to do a filled surface. So there we go. So now we have this surface there. So we can, now that we have a series of series of faces that we're left with for all of this stuff, this entire thing becomes the button. So we kind of reconstructed this bottom piece here. So remember, there's never a dead end here in SolidWorks. There's always some way to kind of work the surfaces. Remember, also always work with what you have. You know, I did that original split line because I already had a cylinder, and all I had to do was make a sketch to divide it up. The offset face was not working, so I decided to use a projected. Actually, that already did the projected, but a surface offset to create this, and thickened it back into the button, and then I was left with this some extra surfaces that I didn't need, deleted all those faces, and then just filled in that cavity. Now that I'm left with all these faces, I'm going to go in and knit all of those and create a solid. Okay. I think there may be some gap here. Okay, we'll leave it like that for right now. I'll see where that gap is. I think it's in this top area. And okay, so we'll get back to that to fill that. I want to take a look at this knob that's over here now. Now with this knob, with this one, I'm going to, let's see, with this one, I think this is going to have to be a hole first. And we can kind of take a look at that. So this is a solid. I'm going to use extrude cut. I'm just going to use this one circle to create a hole. I don't need the thin feature because that's just going to be a straight hole. There it is. and create a fillet on that. Small fillet. And now comes the knob making part of this. Okay. So remember, we have a curved surface here. So with this curved surface and with this knob that you're going to turn, let's say that's the volume button. Remember, you have to clear the apex of the surface, which is right in the middle, to the trough area. So that's over here on the side. So the knob just has to clear that. And just make sure that the wall thickness going down just goes past the lowest part so that you don't have any exposed areas there. Okay, so I'm gonna look at the left here. And I'm gonna sketch on the right plane. Put a center line, and it looks like I have a center line here already. That's the center of that other radius. So if I look this way, here's the middle. That's where I placed this center line. So you can use this as you know, the center of this knob here. So the rest is just going to be a simple revolution. So you decide, you know, what the tolerance of that's going to be. And let's say I want it to be slightly raised at the apex. And then from there, let's say this is going to be the top of the knob. The knob's going to have a little bit of a dome. So I'll use a tangent arc to connect that with that one. So this is the top of the knob. And you decide like how far out that knob goes. So let's say you want it the same distance as the top of this surface maybe. So let's see, I'm going to intersect. I'm going to use the intersect curve to intersect this face with the sketch or the plane that I'm sketching on. So it creates this curve, and this is just for reference. So I'm going to turn it into construction geometry. And what I want is this end here, because I want to make a relation between this and that here. So let's see, so that's going to have let's see, a coincident relation. Let's see if it did it. I'm going to set up another. Actually, it didn't quite make it all the way through here. So there, this represents the very top of this, you know, this the racetrack area. And I want the knob to be the very top of that as well. So I'm going to select both of these and make them collinear. And let's say the top, actually I need to actually work this right as a, well, let's say, you know, this could be a knob. Think about it in terms of ergonomics. This knob, you can either hold it, you know, grip it, well, let's say 2 fingers or 3 fingers, and actually turn it. Or it's one of those, maybe like a scroll wheel, like on those old VCRs. You can maybe put your finger on, you know, like let's say one end of it. Let's say it's got a divot or something, and actually turn it with just your index finger. Let's do it that way, because let's say you want to keep this flush, and just with your index finger, you know, let's say you're gripping a pencil already or something. You don't have the because this is going to be on your wrist, and you just want to use one index finger. So think about it in terms of ergonomics as well. So still flush, and the edge of this dome is going to be pretty close to the apex of the curve surface. Okay, so I'm going to close this off a little bit more. Complete the contour, and then revolve that. So it's going to be, oops, not a revolve cut. It's going to be a revolve. So I selected that the center. It's going to be revolved. And also know that, you know, if you are making a something that's going to turn on a curved surface, you are going to get a, you know, this exposure of one side is going to be exposed more on the side as opposed to the, you know, to the center. So you can decide how you want to do that. Okay. So that's what it's going to look like there. And let's make our divot. Let's say this turns 270 degrees, let's say. So I'm going to go, that'll be our last thing here. So I'm going to make a sketch of the front view. That'll be our circle where, so this will be where our index finger goes into, and it's going to be have a very kind of soft, shallow indentation there. Okay, so this is one of those things where I'll use split line. So I want to split those two. I'm going to delete this face. So this is a solid. Remember this was, I used a solid tool to create this element here, but I used the split line just to separate those elements here. This circle with this face here, so that they're two separate elements. So that way I can delete just that one, this area here. So delete. Okay, so this is where it kind of becomes not challenging, but just know that you can control how much of a divot you want here. And let's say, actually, let's make it easier. I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna go back to the split line, and I'm gonna put that circle right in the middle. So use some reference, center line. That way it's just more accurate. We're not kind of guessing as to that, what that is. You can even put some dimensions on there. Convert entities. Make that construction. Maybe actually put a dimension. Shift and shift. Hold down shift and shift again if you want to dimension to the edges of a circle and not to the center of the circle. So let's say that's 1/8 of an inch to the edge. And anything where the finger goes in, usually the diameter, you know, like at least 1/2 inch. Usually 0.625 is probably ideal. Okay, so there we go. So I just put that in the center. So I put that in the center too because I want to control how far that dips in. So I'm going to fill this with using the filled surface tool. But if I just use a filled surface without any kind of control to it, like a control curve, it's just going to fill it in pretty much flat. So now I'm going to, on the right plane, put a new sketch. So this is the right plane going across the middle. And I'm going to start in a 3-point arc here. So here I'm just going to get close to the edge. I don't have to actually touch the edge. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pierce the end point of that curve, select the edge, and select pierce. That way I know it makes contact with it. Same thing here. Pierce on that. Okay, so now that it's making contact on both edges, this is where you can decide how far in you want it to go. And you can give it a, give it a radius, let's say 0.75. Okay, so that's how far it's going to go in. All right, so now I'm going to use filled surface. I'm going to fill this hole, this edge here. Oops, get rid of that. And important to place the constraint curve, which is this one, and select it right in here. So this is what's going to constrain that that the curvature of that. And you can also constrain it even more. You can constrain it going across if need be. I think because this is round and this is just a radius, we should be okay. So you can check that. I mean, either just with the shading, or we can use our face curves to check that. And remember, this I placed in my surfaces. So you can go up here and type in face curves will show up. What I mean by type is you're going to search your commands, not the SolidWorks help. Make sure that you're in commands for this. So when you type in face, you'll see face curves comes up, and I dropped it in here just as a, because I want access to it. So once you select face curves, you can adjust the mesh in both directions. That way you can see what the, what the surface is doing. It's a way to check that. It's kind of an easy way there. And it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks rounded in both directions. You can still put a plane right in the center of this and put another curve that's an exact radius of this one, so that they're both perfect. But I don't think you need to. I think this is fine here. Click OK. There we go. So now we have these two items as two different surfaces. So I'll knit those, create a solid. There we go. So now we're at a solid again. Now I'm going to select this face and put just a small fillet, 0.01, so that it catches highlights on both. All right, so I'm going to go back here and check this one. So there's your button, here's your knob, and just checking to see why this one didn't. Why did it not? Become a solid. Okay, so I'm going to knit surface, create solid. There may be some gaps in here, we'll see. Sometimes they're doubled up too. Sometimes there may be a surface, so I'm going to select just the surface bodies. Oh, interesting. Oh, I see. Okay. It's just I was selecting too many of these. These are other bodies. Huh. Okay. So I need this bottom one and that one. Get rid of my gap control. I don't need that. Create a solid. There we go. Okay, so that's what it was. There's just some extra surfaces that I don't need. So there you go. Sometimes you just got to go in and just troubleshoot that stuff. Okay, so there's our piece. And if you need to, say, rotate this to, maybe let's say the 7 o'clock position, you can always use your move copy bodies for that. So go into rotate and rotate whatever, however degrees you want. In this case, let's say 300, copy is off. And now that gets rotated. That way you don't have to model it that way. And there you go, ready for key shot. Thank you.